today we're going to be looking at multiplication of decimals. Now, the key to multiplying decimals is ignore the decimal until the very end, and then you can put those decimal positions in. So when you multiply decimals, you ignore the decimals. You set up your problem. You don't line up your decimals. You ignore them. You write them in, but don't pay any attention to them. Multiply like there's no decimal, and then at the end you'll count the decimal positions in each factor, and then that will give you the total number of decimals in your answer. So say you're multiplying tenths times hundredths, that's one decimal position. Hundredths is two decimal positions. 1, 2, that's three together. Tenths times hundredths is thousands, three decimal positions in the end. So go ahead, go and try problems 1 and 2, and we'll come back together. We'll go over them, and good luck.
Please try problems 1 and 2. In decimal multiplication, part 1, you're asked to simplify 6 2/10 times 1 4/10. Now the key to multiplying decimals is you ignore the decimal and then deal with it at the very end. So here I have 6 2/10, which I can think of as 62/10. I have 1 4/10, which I can think of as 14/10. And if I were to multiply these, 6 2/10 times 1 4/10 is the same as 62/10 times 14/10. Noting that I would multiply 62 times 14, ignoring the decimal. 10 times 10 would give me hundredths. So my final answer will be in hundredths. So let's go ahead and do that. I have 62 times 14. Now I have the decimals here, but I'm going to ignore them until the very end. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 6 is 24, or think of that as 4. Regroup the 2. Shift over 1, add 1, 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 6 is 6. I'm ignoring the decimal until the very end. Notice I didn't even have to line them up. It was coincidence they lined up. I'm ignoring them. Go ahead and add. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 10s and 2 10s is 6 10s. 2 hundreds and 6 hundreds is 8 hundreds. So going back over here, that would be like saying I have 868 in the numerator and 100 in the denominator. Because remember, the original problem was tenths times tenths. Tenths times tenths is hundredths. I have one decimal here, one decimal here. My final answer will have 2 scoops. 1 scoop here, 1 scoop here. So I have 8 and 68 hundredths, which makes sense. 6 and change times 1 and change being about 8 and change makes sense. 1 scoop, 1 scoop, 2 scoops. Tenths times tenths is hundredths. In question 2, you're asked to solve 8 thousandths times 7 tenths. Now, the key to multiplying decimals is to ignore the decimal until the very end. So I set up the problem, noting I don't line up the decimal, I'm ignoring it. So I actually will treat this as just 7 times 8, which is 56. If you want, you can say times 0, 0, 0 here, that's fine. If you want, you can have another row of zeros here, because 0 times this whole top will be zeros, but then you'll add it all together. And you'll just still would have ended up with the 56. So now at the end, you have to add that decimal back in. So I have thousands here. I have tenths here. So my final answer will have to be 10 thousandths, Or 1, 2, 3 scoops plus 1 scoop gives me a total of 4 scoops. Now this might look a little bit tricky because you're like, how can I move over? There's nothing there. Well, there are imaginary zeros in front of that 56, so I can add as many zeros as I need. That's where my decimal should go. 3 here, 1 here, 4 total, which makes sense. Tenths times thousandths is 10 thousandths, and my final answer is 56 10,000ths. Please pause your video and try problems 3 and 4. In part 2, question 3, you're asked to solve 261 times 4 and 53/100ths. Now the key to multiplying decimals is ignore the decimal until the very end, noting I don't have to line up decimals when I multiply. I like writing the decimal in the problem just because it reminds me of what I'm doing, but I ignore it until the very end. All right, so let's go ahead and multiply. First 3 ones times 261, ignoring the decimal. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 6 is 18, so that's 8, carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 7, and that gives me 783. I move over 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30, so that's 0, carry the 3. 2 times 5 is 10, plus that 3 that I carried is 13. Move over 2. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 6 is 24, so that's 4, carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 2 that I carried is 10. Go ahead and add these together. I have 3. 8 plus 5 is 13, so that's 3, carry a little 1. 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 4 is 12, so that's 2, carry a little 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 4 is 8. 1, 1. So I would have 1, 1, 8, 2, 3, 3. Now, I have to deal with the decimal now. Noting up here, I have no decimal position to worry about in the first factor, and I have 1, 2 scoops in the second factor, so I'm going to have in total 2 scoops in my answer, which makes sense because 261 times 4 and 53/100ths gives me an answer of hundredths. So I have 1,182 and 33/100ths. In part 4, you're asked to simplify 2 and 61/100ths times 45 and 3/10ths. You should be noticing that this is very similar to question number 3. So we're going to get the same numbers, but a different decimal position. So 2 and 61/100ths times 45 and 3/10ths. Hundredths times tenths, I know my answer is going to be thousandths. Or I have 2 scoops here, 1 scoop here. My answer will have 3 in total, which is thousandths. But let's go ahead and multiply my numbers. First 3 times 261. 3 times 1 is 3. 6 times 3 is 8. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. Shift over 1, add 1 0. So I'm multiplying like there's no decimal. Noting I didn't line up the decimal here. I'm ignoring the decimal for now. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30, so that's 0, carry the 3. 2 times 5 is 10, plus that 3 that was carried is 13. Multiply by 400ths, shift over 2, add 2 zeros. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 6 is 24, so that's 4, carry the 2. 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 2 is 10. If I go ahead and add these, 3, 3, carry the 1, is 12, carry the 1, is 8, 1, 1. Same exact numbers as last time, but this time I have 1, 2 scoops. I have 1 scoop, so I have 3 in total, or hundreds times thousands, rather hundreds times tenths gives me thousands. So it makes sense that my answer is 118 and 233 thousandths, reading the last position there. Please pause your video and try problems 5 and 6. In part 3, question number 5, you're asked to simplify 9. I don't even know what this is. I'm going to have to count back to figure out the position. So tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millionths. What? I'm double checking that. Tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millionths. We have 9 millionths times 45. So I'm going to write this problem down, noticing there was a 9 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros before the decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, times 45. Now, the key to multiplying is to ignore the decimal until the very end. So I'm going to multiply 9 millionths times 45, but ignoring the decimal, so just 9 times 45. 5 times 9 is 45, so I'll have 5 carry the 4. 5 times nothing is nothing, plus that 4. If you want to, you could add a bunch of zeros here, but it won't change what happens next. So move over 1, add a 0. 4 times 9 is 36, so that's 6. You'd carry or regroup the 3. If you wanted to, you could add a bunch of zeros. But I go ahead and add these together, and I get 5. 4 plus 6 is 10, so that's 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, so I have 405. Now, I have to deal with the decimals. I have no decimals here, no scoops to worry about. There is a decimal written here, but no decimal positions. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have to add some zeros. There you go. And this makes sense. 9 millionths times 45 is going to give me 405 millionths. In question 6 in part 3, you're asked to solve 8 and 88 hundredths times 444 thousandths. So first I'm going to go ahead and write out my problem. Now you can put your decimal point in its own box. You can not put your decimal point in its own box. Honestly, it doesn't matter because we're ignoring the decimal into the end right now. Your decimals don't need to be lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 4 times 8 is 32, so that's 2, carry the 3. 4 times 8 is 32, plus that 3 is 35, so 5, carry the 3. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 3 is 35. Move over 1, add 1 0. I'm going to cross out these regroups so I don't accidentally use them again. 4 times 8 is 32, 2, carry the 3. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 3 is 35, 5, carry the 3. 4 times 8 is 32, plus that 3 is 35. I'm moving over 2, I add 2 zeros, cross off my regroup so I don't use them again, and now I do. 4 times 8 is 32, carry the 3. 4 times 8 is 32, plus that 3 is 35, carry the 3. 4 times 8 is 32, plus that 3 is 35. I'm going to add up all my positions. I'll have 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, so that's 2, carry the 1. Boop. 1 plus 3 is 4. 5 and 5 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. Noting I used the associative property there. I associated the things I wanted to associate first. You can combine however you want across addition. You'd still get the same answer. So that was 14,000. So 4, regroup the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9. And then the 3 comes down. So your answer so far is 394,272. But now you need to deal with your decimals. I'm multiplying hundredths by thousands, which means my answer will be 100 thousandths, or 2 scoops here, 3 scoops here, 5 scoops in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 3 and 94,272 hundred thousandths, which makes sense because this was 100 times thousandths. So I have 3 and 94,272 hundred thousandths.
Hi learners, great job today. Once again, the key to multiplying by decimals is ignore the decimal until the very end. Then you can add it back in. So you treat it like it's whole number multiplication. You don't line up decimals. You don't do anything special. In the very end, you deal with your decimals. So you can write them into the problem. Don't line them up when you set up your problem. Multiply, and then you count the number of decimals in place values in each problem, and then that total will give you the total in your answer. So say in the, I like to call them scoops, in the first factor you had 4 scoops, in the second one you had 5 scoops to the decimal. In your final answer you would have 9 scoops, and if you have to, you can add some zeros in to keep your scoops moving. So great job today, and I'll see you next time.